Everything you said we already knew, more or less.
Well, here's something that you didn't know. 2 of those special atomic bombs haven't gone off.
Breaking barriers. Honestly, when I first heard those 2 words, my mind went blank. Kind of like it is right now, but I'm gonna push through that. I was just sitting there thinking, what am I and my 16 years of wisdom and intelligence gonna come up with as the universal barrier that we all have yet to break? And it was only when I started thinking about the barriers we actually create constantly, day to day, cultivate, that I could think of something to discuss, a question to ask. So, today, I will be asking you something you've never been asked before. I will be asking you to abandon an inherent perspective, an innate response, and I will be asking to change your mind. So, before I continue, I would like everyone in here to start to think about what they perceive a criminal to be. Are they someone who's broken the law? A villain? An outcast, perhaps? Whatever they are, I'm sure there's a collective belief in this audience that they are someone who should be punished for the crimes they have committed. So let's delve a bit further into what that actually means. In the 13th century, punishment looked like cutting off the hand of someone who stole a loaf of bread. In the 12th, burnings. In the 11th, hangings. And we're not far from these things, as much as we want to believe we are. I mean, in the 70s, the Western world was still having guillotine-style executions. And we need to stop and remind ourselves that we are definitely not anywhere near deciding what the universal idea of punishment is. It is very much still a work in progress. 25% of the world's criminals currently reside in the United States of America. Now, I think it's fair to say that this is a considerable chunk, and it's even more fair to say that this is probably where most of our preconceptions about justice, law, and punishment actually stem from and come from. Now, the unfortunate thing about these preconceptions is that they have been fed to us on the shining platter of punitive justice. So what exactly is punitive justice? It is an aggressive form of judicial practice that focuses on punishing the offender. Prisons are designed to be small, cramped, uncomfortable, and they have a lack of education, welfare, and many other problems. Now, you may be thinking, that's fine. Those people deserve to live like that. But it's the idea that you are putting people who have tended to actually resort to crime because of either mental health issues or resorted to crime because of socioeconomic placement in a small, dark, cramped cell and telling them, you are the villain, you deserve to be treated like an animal, sometimes worse than an animal. Now, if we look at punishment as a deterrent, it still fails on all fronts. In the US, the rate of recidivism is 76% of inmates less than 5 years after their release. So, what can we do about this? What's a solution that we can think of? Bing! Reformative justice is my solution. Reformative justice is a form of judicial practice that focuses on the needs of the victim as well as the needs of the offender. It urges the offender to understand the consequences of their actions and how that's affected the victim as well as the community around them, and tries to remedy these actions. It tries to put these people further into society rather than tracking them away. Now, as all things do, reformative justice sounds like a bright and shining star when kept as an idea. But I am not going to give you a solution without objective proof. We'll take Norway as an example. And I know it's always the Scandinavian countries, but they're doing something right. Norway is an impeccable example of what reformative justice can actually do for a nation. Their recidivism rates are the lowest in the world at 20%, and they only have 75 per 100,000 people actually in these prisons when we talk about their population. Now, with nothing to compare to, I know that sounds like an abrasive number, but it's actually a tenth of the US's 707 per 100,000 people. And this is not just contained to Norway. As you can see behind me, 80% of the world actually has some sort of reformative practice in place in their judicial systems today. But what is the unfortunate thing is that these are limited to juvenile cases most of the time. And I want to try to push for something more. So, I propose it is simply due to mindset. In Norway, these offenders are thought of as people. Yes, people who committed acts of violence, crimes, broke the law, but people who have been ostracized by society, sent on a path of societal pariah, people who should not be furthered by aggressive and unethical punishment. So what am I going to ask you? I ask you, abandon your preconceived notions of what a criminal really is. Start separating the offender from the offense, and push for a more well-rounded and open society, one that does not vilify these people, but instead anticipates and helps them. So how about we break barriers with the ones that we most commonly put in? Thank you very much.